Welcome back. It was created to show vets that President Trump is serious about improving services at the Veterans Administration. For years, the VA has been knocked for being a long wait times, the ever-increasing number of veterans leaving the military in August. The White House VA Veteran Complaint Line, the only problem, it appears that the complaint line needs a complaint line. Long wait times, the runaround. So what do vets do? Where do they go? To get answers, they need more help and more information. Joining us for more is Lee Washington of the Manatee County Office of Veteran Services, Ron Babcock, a Vietnam veteran, and Jerry Zivick, our own consumer watchdog. And Ron, I'm going to start with you because because people are going to watch this and they're going to listen to you and their blood is going to boil, I guarantee it. You did get through after some 20 minutes, but did not get your questions answered.
Right.
Did the VA follow up?
Yes, they did. Yesterday, a supervisor called and introduced himself as an official with the White House VA hotline, and he wanted a little information regarding my experience with that call from last week.
All right, so let me see if I got this straight. Not in terms of information about your complaint.
No, he had. This was just to see how well they did. And he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think we did? And I said, well, I can't blame the agent. She didn't know where to go because the law was not accepted or changed. On a scale of 1 to 10, as you've asked, I guess I'd have to give you less than a 5 during that phone call.
And what did they say?
He said, oh, well, I'm going to write down a 9 anyway. Okay, do it your way.
This is the White House Veteran
VA hotline, yes.
That was supposed to be outreach to vets to show vets and the public that we're going to cut through everything and get you the help you need.
I think they meant well.
Lee, I mean, this is going to infuriate a lot of people who are watching this right now who, you know, there was a new day at the Veterans Administration. You have a new secretary, you have a new president who says that he has got the backs of vets, and then they hear this.
Well, the concern that you have is obviously you're stating that it's the White House hotline for VA concerns. So we really don't know who answered the phone, if they're actually VA employees or not. And my concern will always be that locally, veterans have a faster avenue to resolve their issues, and it would be calling that hotline. But obviously, I would be extremely concerned if you're calling a hotline and you're not getting the answers that you need, and it seems as though you're just doing the circle.
You said in that story that your fear was this was a Band-Aid and that the answers that vets need are available through your office and other offices around here. Do you think that if this hotline is not living up to advertisement, that it's slowing down the process for our vets?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's slowing down. I think that, you know, the veterans will get caught up on the telephone hoping that someone on the other end is listening. But, you know, in our case here in Manatee County, Sarasota, and Pinellas, you have a direct access to the folks over at Bay Pines. They have quarterly roundtables and they have town hall meetings. You have offices like ours in Manatee County Veteran Services that can assist the veterans and give them the answers that they need.
Ron, Jerry, Ron's experience is not unique. I mean, I've seen stories around here that this is happening around the country, long wait times to just get through and no easy answers. Maybe there are some success stories out there, but too often there aren't.
Well, there should be no failures at all. And I have to agree with Lee. Why are they setting up this hotline? In theory, we have our elected representatives. They should be our hotline. If something's stuck, we should be able to write our congressperson or our senators and say, help me out here. I seem to be stuck in a snafu.
Veterans assistance in terms of congressional district offices has always been a staple of what a U.S. congressman should be doing.
Well, it's a staple, but what actually are they really doing? And who's really staffing those offices? Basically, Lee is competent above and beyond, but how many people share his competencies and his knowledge?
Right, we're going to talk more about that. We are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on the new hotline for veterans right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. We want to go back to election results for a second in the Bradenton Beach mayor's race. We wanted to tell you that John Chappie is replacing Mayor Bill Sharon as the mayor of Bradenton Beach. John Chappie winning 59.95% of the vote to Mayor Sharon's 40.05% of the vote, and of course we'll have updated election results throughout this broadcast. Now back to the new White House Veterans Complaint Line, which isn't working that well so far, and whether vets can turn to their for their questions. Joining us for more is Lee Washington of Manatee County Office of Veteran Services, Ron Babcock, a Vietnam veteran, and Jerry Zivick, our consumer watchdog. Gentlemen, let's try to talk about where we are in terms of the creation of this hotline, which was created by the president. In fact, one story that we have here says that President Trump told attendees of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Convention that he would create a private White House hotline for veterans, and he might also stay up late at night taking calls instead of tweeting. I haven't heard any evidence that he is taking these calls. But Lee, let me ask you, what is the danger of promising something like this to veterans who have some very serious questions and not delivering?
Well, I think the biggest harm that you're going to have is damaging the VA's reputation further than what it already is. Because at the end of the day, if you come out with a hotline for complaints, that's exactly what it's going to turn into, complaints. Where can a veteran actually go, lowest level, to get their problem resolved? And I always believe that's in the community. To have them call an 800 number that goes who knows where, and they still don't end up with an answer, that's a problem. And I don't think that we really should have that call line.
So I have a question. So the VA's experienced so much negative publicity in the last few years. Do you think it's actually possible to rehabilitate the VA's reputation?
Well, I think overall the VA does a great job. I mean, their delivery of service in some areas needs to be tweaked a bit, but we're talking about the White House complaint line about the VA. So I don't really believe that that's a line that's being staffed by VA employees, maybe some veterans, but I think there are individuals that are receiving calls from veterans who are concerned, family members and whatnot, but it's really not making any difference.
Well, one of the many questions is whether this hotline was planned out carefully, and the staffing and the flow of information, was that planned out to actually deliver on what the advertising was?
Well, initially it was a pilot, and veterans made their voice heard. They wanted to have more veterans on the other side of that telephone. So it took a couple of months to get that in place, but we still don't know what the staffing percentages are with veterans answering those phone calls.
Right. Let's get to, Ron, what your underlying question is. What is the question you want answered?
The reason I called the VA White House hotline was to find out whether or not the VA secretary, after 18 months of serious consideration and thought processes with himself and his staff, was going to say yes and accept the Blue Water Vietnam Navy veterans.
And let's refresh everybody's memory. Blue Water veterans like yourself are service members, mostly Navy, who
Yes.
served on ships off of the Vietnamese coast.
Right.
And you claim you were exposed to Agent Orange
Correct.
by servicing fighter jets and other aircraft, and other veterans like yourself are suffering from
Exactly.
cancer. And you want service connection,
Yes.
which for all these years and decades
Yes.
you have not gotten.
Yes. Many of us, including myself, have the same illnesses and diseases that the veterans that set foot on the ground have, that are receiving full benefits.
The exact
And we're not. The exact same diseases.
Jerry, Congress, the Veterans Affairs Committee was supposed to take up this very issue. What happened?
It's stalled in committee for the same reason it's been stalling all of these years. It's money. They have no money to fund taking care of these
How much
90
money
plus
are we
thousand.
talking about?
They're talking about $1 billion. In my thinking, it's actually closer to $5 billion. But as we were talking about, you're talking about a $5 trillion tax cut, and we don't have money for these veterans.
So let me get this straight. We're talking about anywhere from $1.5 to $5 billion to service our veterans who are in Vietnam. They're being told that there is no money, but we're talking about a $1 trillion tax cut.
That's correct. But I'm going to read between the lines. So Senator Rowe of Tennessee introduced legislation to reform the choice program. And basically, I believe that that Congress wants to privatize the VA. They want to take those buildings, that land, and they want to sell it. Well, if they're going to do that, then there's your money. You could at least dedicate it toward the Blue Water vets.
There's your money for the tax cut that they're talking about. I mean,
Well, yeah, you're correct. Is it going to go toward vets? Probably not. But if they can't find the money and they keep cutting back on VA services, you can see where this is headed.
Ron, do you think that there's sometimes a difference between what members of Congress and the Senate and whoever is president say about their dedication to getting veterans what they need and deserve, and what they actually do in terms of their priorities once they get there?
No, I have thoughts. From my point of view, the politicians, when they're running for office, they go, rah, 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 we're going to take care of our veterans. And many of them, once they reach that high office in Congress or state, I've got my own personal agenda to take care of. Phooey on them veterans. I'll listen to them, but not much is going to happen.
Lee, let me ask you this. You know, while this debate with Ron and members of Congress takes place over and over again, your job is to actually help vets get what they need and what they deserve. But how hamstrung are you in terms of vets like Ron, who may be Blue Water vets, in terms of the law right now does not provide for service connection but for Ron's cancer and assistance?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we attempt to do in my office and in the similar offices around the state is to take a look at the veteran's entire life. Can we at least get them health care to address some of their underlying conditions? But also, when you talk about Blue Water veterans, we're going to advocate for him every single day. I am very sympathetic to Ron's case. I think it's just shameful how they're being treated. But the services that you have locally that will help him, his family, and others like him are in place here in Manatee County and Sarasota because of the health care that's provided by the VA.
I mean, what do you mean? I mean, I would imagine if you're dealing with cancer and cancer treatment, it's very expensive and very extensive. Can you provide locally what the VA would provide in terms of this kind of treatment?
I would think the services are locally, but there's also going to fall on the veteran to determine what kind of insurance to cover that gap. And that's what we're truly missing. I believe, as well as Ron, we've had conversations about this before, a lot of the Vietnam veterans truly just want to be heard and put on record what happened to them. Yeah. That's what they really want. And it's shameful that they can't do that.
Ron, if there's one thing that you could say, you know, we have two members of Congress representing the Suncoast, Tom Rooney and Vern Buchanan.
Yes.
What are they not doing enough of?
Yeah, I don't think I have the full answer. I can tell you that for the last 3 or 4 years, bills have been introduced in both houses of Congress to vote and get the benefits for the Blue Water vets. The bills in all these different years are going absolutely nowhere. And as I said before, the politicians campaign for office saying they're going to take care of us veterans that have, you know, illnesses, came back from the war zone with a problem or two. And once they get into office,
All right, we are going to pick up our conversation in a moment. A quick break, final thoughts when we return. Update you, it's election night on the Suncoast, and we have 2 council member seats that are up for grabs in the city of Venice, and let's go to the results right now. For seat number 1, we have Mitzi Fiedler beating Emilio Calissimo by a percentage of 59.46 to 40.54. And that is with 100% of the precincts reporting. For council seat number 2, we have Charles Newsom defeating Deborah Anderson by 55.96% to 44.04%. And you might recall that the biggest issues taking place right now in Venice is the pace of development in that city. And depending on who wins, will be 2 votes on the city council in terms of future development in the city of Venice. Okay, it's time for final thoughts with our guests here. We're talking about the veterans complaint line that was supposed to go to the White House and Blue Water vets. And Jerry, your point is that we don't have a whole lot of time to debate this subject.
No, we're in a race against time. There are 500 veterans dying a day. So basically, the VA is playing with house money. The longer they wait, the less they have to pay out. It's more than shameful. Everybody should be outraged.
We've been following your story for 2 years now,
I know.
Ron, and not much has changed.
Nope.
How frustrated are you?
very frustrated. I was so depressed the other day to receive the bad news from the VA that they wouldn't accept the Blue Water veterans as talk was that they would, but they didn't because of what Jerry has indicated, money.
Lee, how many Blue Water vets are in our area? How often do you hear the story?
You have at least once a week. There's a veteran that served the board ship, even in the Air Force, that can't document actually setting foot in Vietnam. But I just want to touch base on something you asked me earlier in the last segment. You know, for those veterans that may not be in the VA healthcare system, there are ways that they can get in, catastrophically ill or hardship. So that care for that particular cancer that's not currently covered under Agent Orange, they can still be treated in the VA. But here's one thing we got to remember. Over the last 4 years or so, the VA has had 3 secretaries. So it's extremely hard for anyone to get true traction and put any plans in place to fix the true problems. I would say, I would always wager on our local folks in the Bay Pines healthcare system and just those advocates within the state of Florida.
All right, we have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on the Boy Scouts allowing girls to join. According to a poll by NBC News and the Wall Street Journal, 57% of Americans oppose the new rules. Only 37% of women support the Boy Scouts admitting girls, while 35% of men supported. Only 2.3 million boys were in the Scouts last year. Now, that is down from 6.5 million in 1972. Brian says numbers are down from 1972. I would guess that is because kids have a lot more options than they did in 1972. Christine says, I think it is a bad idea. Both genders need a place that they can go and feel comfortable among their peers, a place where they can be themselves. Susan says, this is not an equality thing. Boys need to spend time with boys and girls need to spend time with girls. They may all choose to do the same thing, but they need to not to do it together. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And here's a reminder, for updates on national and local breaking news, you can download the latest updated version of our app. Android users will get that update automatically, but iPhone users will need to go to the App Store and re-download the app. Just search for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Lee Washington of the Manatee County Office of Veteran Services, Ron Babcock, a Vietnam veteran, and Jerry Zivick, our consumer watchdog.